Listen closely, my friend. You're here because something broke inside you. Someone you trusted turned their back. Someone you believed in chose themselves over you. Someone you would have walked through fire for, left you standing in the ashes alone. And now you're searching for an answer, searching for relief, searching for a reason why loyalty became a myth and promises became dust. I see you, sitting there in the quiet hours when the world sleeps and your mind refuses to rest. Replaying moments, analyzing words, trying to find where you went wrong, trying to understand how people you loved could become strangers who smile at your pain. You feel it, don't you? That weight in your chest, that question that keeps echoing. How could they do this to me? But here's what I need you to understand right now, in this very moment. That betrayal you're mourning, that knife in your back, that abandonment that shattered your trust. It wasn't your destruction, it was your awakening. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, an emperor who commanded legions, wrote these words while sitting alone in his tent during brutal wars. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Even an emperor, surrounded by thousands, understood this fundamental truth. People will disappoint you. People will use you. People will betray you, not because you're weak, not because you're worthless, but because that's the nature of humanity. And the moment you accept this, the moment you stop being shocked by betrayal and start being prepared for it, everything changes. But most people never get here. Most people live their entire lives as victims of other people's choices. They give away their power to anyone who smiles at them. They build their identity on relationships that were never meant to last. They anchor their happiness to people who were always going to leave. And when the inevitable happens, when the betrayal comes, they collapse. They spiral. They spend years asking why, never realizing that why doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what you do next. See, the modern world has made you soft. It's taught you that you need people to validate you, that you need approval to move forward, that you need company to be whole. Social media shows you fake connections and calls it community. Self-help gurus tell you that you're incomplete without your tribe. And Hollywood feeds you stories where the hero always has loyal friends standing beside them at the final battle. It's all a beautiful lie. The truth is so much harder and so much more liberating. You came into this world alone. You'll leave it alone. And every significant transformation, every real moment of growth, every genuine discovery of your power happens in the solitude you've been taught to fear. That betrayal you experienced, it didn't take anything from you. It revealed everything to you. It showed you who was real and who was playing a role. It burned away the illusions you were clinging to. It forced you to see the truth you kept avoiding. Most people are weak, most loyalty is conditional, and most promises expire the moment they become inconvenient. And now you have a choice. You can spend the rest of your life bitter, angry, and paralyzed by what they did to you. Or you can do what the Stoics have been teaching for 2,000 years. You can use this pain as fuel. You can transform this betrayal into power. You can rise from these ashes not as a victim, but as something they could never be. Unbreakable, self-reliant, free. Now, before we go deeper, I need to tell you something. This message is not for everyone. It's not for the people still making excuses. It's not for those who want someone to tell them their weakness is acceptable. It's not for the ones scrolling through videos looking for easy answers and comfortable lies. This is for you if you still have that fire inside, that rage that won't let you sleep, that hunger that refuses to be satisfied with mediocrity, that voice inside you that's screaming, "There has to be more than this." If you're still here, if you're still listening, then you're ready. You're ready to learn what the ancient Stoics knew, what Marcus Aurelius practiced while ruling an empire, what Epictetus taught after surviving slavery, what Seneca understood about power, loss, and resilience. In this video, you're going to learn the 7 Stoic Laws of Transformation, 7 principles that will take you from betrayed and broken to powerful and unshakable. These aren't theories. These aren't motivational speeches. These are tested truths forged in the hardest moments of human experience, proven over centuries by warriors, philosophers, and emperors who faced far worse than you're facing now. And they didn't just survive, they transcended. They became legends, not because they avoided pain, but because they mastered it. So if you're ready to stop being a victim and start being a force, then stay with me. Let's begin your transformation. Let's turn your betrayal into your greatest victory. Let's build the version of you that makes them regret walking away. Not because you'll beg them to come back, but because they'll see what they lost when you became someone they could never reach again. Number 1. Understand the dichotomy of control. This is the foundation, the absolute cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, and the first truth you must burn into your mind. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of history's greatest teachers, said it simply: "Some things are within our power, and some things are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are body, property, reputation, office, and in a word, whatever is not of our own doing." Read that again. Let it sink deep, because this is where most people lose their entire lives. They spend every day trying to control things they have no power over. They obsess over what other people think. They stress about outcomes they can't guarantee. They agonize over whether someone will love them, respect them, stay with them. And in doing so, they become slaves. Slaves to opinion, slaves to external validation, slaves to circumstances. The person who betrayed you, that was never in your control. Their character, their choices, their capacity for loyalty, their reasons for leaving, none of that was yours to command. You could be perfect, and they would still disappoint you. You could give everything, and they would still take it for granted. You could be loyal to the end, and they would still walk away, because they are them, and you are you, and the only thing you ever truly control is yourself. Your thoughts, your actions, your responses, your character, your discipline, your standards. That's it. That's your kingdom. That's your empire. And most people never rule it because they're too busy trying to control kingdoms that will never belong to them. Here's what this looks like in modern life. You wake up and immediately check your phone, looking for messages, looking for validation, looking for proof that people still care about you. And when the messages aren't there, or they're not what you wanted, your entire mood shifts. Your whole day is determined by something completely outside your control. Someone else's attention becomes your emotional thermostat. That's slavery. You post something online and obsess over the likes, the comments, the reactions. You refresh the page over and over. You compare your numbers to others. You feel good when people approve and crushed when they don't. You've given strangers the power to determine your worth. That's slavery. You go to work and stress about whether your boss appreciates you, whether your colleagues respect you, whether you will get the promotion, the recognition, the reward. You work harder trying to control their perception than you do actually mastering your craft. That's slavery. You're in a relationship, and you constantly need reassurance. You need them to prove they love you. You need them to text back immediately. You need them to prioritize you above everything. And when they don't, you spiral into anxiety and doubt. You've made your peace dependent on another person's behavior. That's slavery. See the pattern? Modern life is designed to keep you focused on everything you can't control. And the more you focus there, the weaker you become, the more anxious, the more desperate, the more powerless. But the Stoic? The Stoic understands the game. The Stoic wakes up and asks a different question. Not what will happen to me today, but how will I respond to whatever happens today? The Stoic doesn't hope people will be loyal. The Stoic builds character so strong that other people's disloyalty becomes irrelevant. The Stoic doesn't need validation because the Stoic validates themselves through discipline, through action, through adherence to their own standards. The Stoic doesn't fear betrayal because the Stoic never gave away the power to be destroyed by it. When someone walks away from a Stoic's life, the Stoic doesn't beg, doesn't plead, doesn't ask why. The Stoic simply notes it, learns from it, and continues building their empire. Because the Stoic knows that the only opinion that truly matters is the one they hold of themselves. And that opinion is earned through action, not granted by others through approval. This is the first law you must master. Stop trying to control people. Stop trying to control outcomes. Stop trying to control circumstances. Control yourself. Control your effort. Control your response. Control your discipline. Control your character. When you master the dichotomy of control, betrayal loses its power. Because you realize they didn't take anything from you. They simply revealed who they were. And you remain who you are. Unshaken, unmoved, in control of the only thing that ever mattered. Yourself. I want you to do something right now. Comment these words below. I control only myself, and that is enough. Type it out. Let it be your declaration, your line in the sand, your commitment to never again giving away your power to people who don't deserve it. Because once you own this truth, once you live this principle, everything changes. Betrayal becomes impossible. Because how can someone betray you when you never gave them the power to complete you in the first place? Number 2, master your emotions, or they will master you. Now that you understand what you can and cannot control, let's talk about the battlefield that determines everything. Your mind, your emotional state, the inner world that most people surrender to every single day without even realizing they're at war. Seneca, one of the wealthiest and most powerful men in Rome, wrote this from experience. The mind that is anxious about future events is miserable. He also said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Think about that. The man who had everything understood that his greatest battles weren't with external enemies. They were with his own thoughts, his own fears, his own emotional reactions. And here's the brutal truth about your betrayal. The actual moment it happened, that moment of discovery, that second when you found out, that instant was painful. But it was brief. The real torture, the real suffering, the months or years of agony you've experienced, that's not them. That's you. That's your mind replaying it over and over. That's your emotions spiraling into worst-case scenarios. That's your imagination creating conversations that never happened and futures that will never exist. You're not suffering from what they did. You're suffering from what you keep doing to yourself with the thoughts you choose to entertain and the emotions you choose to indulge. Most people have zero emotional discipline. Zero. They wake up and let whatever feeling shows up run their entire day. They feel sad, so they act sad, so they become sad. They feel anxious, so they spiral into anxiety, and anxiety becomes their identity. They feel angry, so they rage, and rage becomes their default. They're like leaves in the wind. No control, no direction, just blown around by every emotional gust that comes their way. And modern society encourages this. It tells you to express your feelings, to honor your emotions, to let it all out. It sells you the lie that emotional incontinence is somehow healthy, that if you feel it, you should show it, act on it, be controlled by it. But the Stoics knew better. They knew that emotions are information, not instructions. They're signals, not commands. You feel betrayed? That's information. Someone showed you who they are. You feel angry? That's information. You have energy that needs to be channeled into productive action. You feel sad? That's information. You valued something that's gone, and now you must rebuild. But here's where weak people and strong people diverge. The weak person feels betrayed and becomes betrayal. They let it consume them. They wear it like an identity. They make it their story, and they stay stuck in that story for years, maybe forever. The strong person, the Stoic, feels betrayed and then asks, "What do I do with this feeling? How do I transform this energy? How do I use this pain to forge something better?" They don't deny the emotion. They don't suppress it. They acknowledge it, and then they choose their response. They master it. Here's what emotional mastery looks like in real life. Something triggers you. Someone mentions the person who betrayed you, or you see them somewhere, or a memory pops up, and immediately you feel that surge, that anger, that sadness, that pain. The average person. They react instantly. They lash out or shut down. They let the emotion drive them into destructive behavior. They text when they shouldn't. They stalk social media. They say things they regret. They make decisions from pain that create more pain. But you're different now. You feel the emotion. You acknowledge it. You say to yourself, "I'm feeling angry right now. This is anger. This is information about something I valued." And then you pause. You breathe. You create space between the feeling and your action. And in that space, you choose. You choose not to react. You choose not to let this momentary emotion dictate your behavior. You choose to channel it into your workout, into your work, into building something better. You master the emotion instead of letting it master you. This is power. This is freedom. This is what separates those who rise from those who remain broken. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal from his own trusted generals, from people he considered brothers, and he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength, not power over their betrayal, power over his mind, power over his reaction, power over his emotional state. That's the only power that matters. That's the only power that's real. And here's what most people don't understand. When you master your emotions, when you refuse to be controlled by them, you become terrifying to those who betrayed you. Not because you're angry or vengeful, but because you're unmoved. They expected you to fall apart. They expected drama, chaos, emotional breakdowns, desperate attempts to win them back. And instead, you're calm, you're focused, you're building, you're thriving. You're not giving them the satisfaction of your destruction. You're showing them through your composure that they never had the power they thought they had. That's the ultimate victory. Not revenge, not getting even, but becoming so emotionally disciplined, so mentally strong, so internally powerful that their betrayal becomes nothing more than a footnote in your story of transformation. So here's your practice. Every single day, multiple times a day, you will feel negative emotions. When you do, don't react. Pause. Name the emotion. Understand what it's telling you. And then choose your response based on your values, your goals, your character. Not based on the feeling. Do this consistently, and within weeks, you'll notice something incredible. Emotions that used to control you for days now pass through you in minutes. Triggers that used to derail you completely barely register. You become like water. Emotions flow through you, but they don't define you. They don't control you. They don't master you. Comment this below and mean it. I master my emotions. They don't master me. That's your new truth. That's your new identity. That's the person you're becoming through this betrayal. Number 3, turn obstacles into fuel. Here's where we separate the philosophers from the practitioners, the talkers from the walkers, the victims from the victors. Anyone can understand Stoic principles intellectually, but can you live them when your world is falling apart? Can you practice them when you're in the depths? Can you apply them when betrayal has left you questioning everything? Marcus Aurelius gave us the framework. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Read that until it rewrites your brain. The obstacle is not blocking your path. The obstacle is the path. The betrayal is not delaying your transformation. The betrayal is your transformation. This is the radical, uncomfortable, life-changing truth that most people never accept. They spend their lives trying to avoid obstacles. They see challenges as problems. They view difficulties as setbacks. They treat betrayal as something to recover from, to get over, to move past. And they miss the entire point. The betrayal isn't something to overcome. It's something to use. It's not a detour from your path. It is your path. Think about what betrayal forced you to do. It forced you to face uncomfortable truths about people. It forced you to question your judgment. It forced you to examine your boundaries. It forced you to confront your own weaknesses. It forced you to become self-reliant. It forced you to find strength you didn't know you had. It forced you to grow. Every single skill you're developing right now, every piece of wisdom you're gaining, every layer of strength you're building, it's happening because of the betrayal, not in spite of it. That person who walked away from you, they gave you the greatest gift anyone could give you. They gave you necessity. The necessity to change, the necessity to grow, the necessity to evolve. Because here's what you need to understand. When life is comfortable, when relationships are easy, when everything is smooth, most people don't transform. They don't have to. There's no pressure, no urgency, no reason to become better. They coast, they settle, they stay mediocre. But you don't have that luxury anymore. The betrayal created a crisis, and every crisis is a decision point. You either break or you build. You either collapse or you forge yourself into something unbreakable. The obstacle gave you no choice but to choose. And if you're still here, still fighting, still listening to these words, then you've already chosen. You've chosen the harder path, the path of transformation, the path of using your pain as fuel instead of letting it become your prison. Look at how the ancient Stoics lived this principle. Epictetus was born into slavery, literal slavery. His own name means acquired one. He was property. He was beaten so badly he walked with a limp his entire life. That was his obstacle. That was his betrayal by fate, by circumstance, by the universe itself. And what did he do? He could have become bitter, angry, hateful. He could have lived his entire life consumed by the injustice of his situation. Instead, he became one of the greatest philosophers in human history. He taught emperors. He influenced millions across centuries. He transformed his chains into a classroom, his suffering into wisdom, his obstacle into his life's work. Marcus Aurelius lost his father at a young age, faced constant wars, dealt with plague, watched his own children die, faced betrayal from generals and allies, was surrounded by corruption and incompetence. That was his obstacle. That was his burden. And what did he do? He wrote meditations. He ruled with wisdom and justice. He became known as the philosopher king. He transformed personal tragedy into public virtue. His obstacles into the foundation of leadership that would inspire people for 2,000 years. Seneca was exiled, falsely accused, forced to live away from Rome in harsh conditions, betrayed by the very system he served. That was his obstacle. And what did he do? He wrote some of the most profound philosophical works in history. He used his exile as time for reflection, for writing, for contribution. He turned isolation into insight, his obstacle into legacy. See the pattern? The greatest Stoics didn't just endure their obstacles. They didn't just survive their betrayals. They used them. They transformed them. They turned them into fuel for greatness. And that's exactly what you're going to do. But here's what this actually means in practice. It means you stop complaining. Right now, today, you stop telling the story of how you were wronged. You stop seeking sympathy. You stop explaining to everyone who will listen about how badly you were treated. Not because your pain isn't real, but because that story keeps you weak. Every time you tell it, you reinforce your identity as a victim. You practice being betrayed instead of practicing being powerful. Instead, you tell a different story. You say, "Something happened that forced me to grow. Someone showed me I needed to become self-reliant. A situation occurred that revealed I needed to build stronger character. I was given an opportunity to transform, and I took it. Same event, different frame, different meaning, different power. It means you channel every ounce of pain into productive action. You feel angry, you train, you feel sad, you work, you feel lost, you learn, you feel rejected, you build. You turn every negative emotion into positive action. You become an alchemist. You transform the lead of betrayal into the gold of discipline, focus, strength, wisdom. It means you look at who you were before the betrayal and honestly assess where you were weak, where you were naive, where you were too trusting, where you ignored red flags, where you sacrificed your standards, where you tolerated disrespect. And then you fix those things, not with shame, not with self-blame, but with ruthless honesty and commitment to never being that weak again. The obstacle showed you your weaknesses. Now use that information to eliminate them. This is how you turn obstacles into fuel. This is how you make the betrayal meaningful. This is how you ensure that their wrong becomes your right, Their ending becomes your beginning. Their betrayal becomes your breakthrough. And here's the beautiful irony. When you do this, when you truly transform the obstacle into the path, something unexpected happens. You become grateful. Not grateful they betrayed you in some fake, forced way, but genuinely grateful for what it forced you to become. Grateful for the strength you didn't know you had. Grateful for the self-reliance you had to develop. Grateful for the wisdom you had to earn. Grateful that you're no longer the naive person who could be destroyed by someone else's choices. You become grateful that the obstacle appeared, because without it, you would have remained weak, dependent, and blind to your own potential. That's the transformation. That's the victory. That's what makes you unbreakable. Comment this: my obstacles are my opportunities. Type it, believe it, live it, because that single shift in perspective changes everything. Number 4, practice voluntary discomfort. Now we go deeper. We move from reactive strength to proactive power. Everything we've talked about so far has been about responding to the betrayal that already happened. But now we talk about preparing for everything that's coming. Because here's what you need to know. This won't be the last time life tests you. This betrayal won't be your last obstacle. There will be more disappointments, more losses, more pain, more challenges. Life guarantees it. So the question isn't whether you'll face adversity again. The question is, will you be ready? The Stoics understood something that modern comfort culture has completely forgotten. Strength isn't built in easy times. Resilience isn't developed when everything is smooth. Character isn't forged in convenience. You don't build an unbreakable mind by avoiding difficulty. You build it by choosing difficulty, by voluntarily subjecting yourself to discomfort, so that when involuntary discomfort arrives, you're already practiced, you're already strong, you're already unshakable. Seneca wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" He would regularly practice poverty. Not because he was poor, he was incredibly wealthy, but because he wanted to prove to himself that losing his wealth wouldn't destroy him. He wanted to know, viscerally, that he could handle the worst-case scenario. So, when circumstances threatened him, when he was exiled, when he lost everything, he was prepared. The fear had no power, because he had already lived through the reality, by choice, on his terms. This is what modern people refuse to do. They avoid discomfort at all costs. They optimize for ease. They choose convenience over growth. They stay in their comfort zone and wonder why they're weak, why they can't handle stress, why every small setback feels like a catastrophe. It's because they've never practiced being uncomfortable. They've never built their resilience. They've never stress-tested their character. And then life does it for them, involuntarily, and they shatter. You got betrayed, and it devastated you. Why? Not just because of what happened, but because you weren't ready. You hadn't built the emotional strength to handle it. You hadn't practiced detachment. You hadn't prepared yourself for the reality that people can and will disappoint you. You were soft because you'd been living soft, and life showed you the cost of that softness. But now you know better. Now you're going to do what the Stoics did. You're going to choose discomfort. You're going to practice hardship. You're going to voluntarily stress test yourself so that nothing life throws at you can break you ever again. What does this look like in practice? It means you stop hitting snooze. You set your alarm and you get up when it goes off, even when every fiber of your being wants to stay in bed, especially when you want to stay in bed. Because that moment, that decision to override comfort, that's where you build willpower. That's where you prove to yourself that you can do hard things. It means you exercise even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. You train not just your body, but your discipline. You teach yourself that your actions are determined by your will, not by your emotions. Rain, snow, tired, sore, doesn't matter. You move. You build momentum. You practice being uncomfortable. It means you take cold showers. And I can already hear some of you dismissing this as trivial, but it's not about the shower. It's about standing under cold water when every instinct is screaming at you to make it warm. It's about controlling your breath, calming your mind, and choosing to stay. It's training. It's practice. It's building the neural pathways that say, I can be uncomfortable and be okay. I can face what I don't want to face and survive. I control my response. It means you fast occasionally. You practice being hungry. You prove to yourself that you don't need constant satisfaction, that you can feel a desire and not immediately gratify it, that you're in control of your appetites, not enslaved by them. It means you sit in silence. No phone, no music, no distractions. Just you and your thoughts. Most people can't do this for 5 minutes without reaching for a device. They're addicted to distraction. They're terrified of their own mind. You're going to practice being alone with yourself, being comfortable in silence, being at peace with just your thoughts. Because when you can sit in silence and be at peace, nothing external can disturb you. It means you say no to things you want. You practice delayed gratification. You build self-control. You prove that you're not a slave to every impulse and desire. You can want something and choose not to have it. That's power. That's freedom. See what's happening here? You're not just recovering from betrayal. You're building an entirely different version of yourself. A version that can't be broken because you've already been through worse, by choice. A version that doesn't fear loss because you regularly practice having less. A version that doesn't need comfort because you're comfortable being uncomfortable. This is how you become unshakable, not by avoiding difficulty, but by seeking it. Not by hoping life gets easier, but by making yourself stronger. Not by praying for fewer obstacles, but by building the capacity to handle any obstacle. And here's what happens when you live like this. When the next betrayal comes, when the next disappointment arrives, when the next loss occurs, you don't shatter. You barely even flinch, because you've been preparing. You've been training. You've been building resilience through thousands of small acts of voluntary discomfort. The pain that would destroy someone else, it's just another Tuesday for you. The setback that would derail someone else's entire year, you process it in a day and keep moving. You become anti-fragile, not just resilient, not just able to withstand stress, but actually strengthened by it. Every challenge makes you stronger because you've been practicing for it. This is the Stoic way. This is the warrior's path. This is how you ensure that no betrayal, no obstacle, no circumstance can ever reduce you to the broken person you were before. Comment this: I choose discomfort because it builds strength. Type it, commit to it, and then start practicing it today. Right now, choose one uncomfortable thing and do it. Prove to yourself that you're different, that you're stronger, that you're in control. Number 5, guard your attention like your life depends on it, because it does. Let's talk about the most valuable resource you have, the resource that determines everything else, the resource that most people give away for free to anyone and anything that asks for it. Your attention. Marcus Aurelius understood this at the deepest level. He wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Therefore, guard accordingly. Guard your thoughts. Guard what enters your mind. Guard what you focus on. Because whatever you give your attention to grows. Whatever you focus on expands. Whatever you think about consistently becomes your reality. And most people are completely unconscious about where they direct their attention. They wake up and immediately give it to their phone, to social media, to news, to other people's lives, to other people's opinions, to things they can't control. They spend hours every single day feeding their mind garbage, consuming content that makes them angry, anxious, envious, distracted. And then they wonder why they feel terrible, why they can't focus, why they can't make progress, why they feel stuck. It's because they're not guarding their attention. They're letting anyone and anything steal the most precious thing they have. After a betrayal, this becomes even more critical, because where is your attention going? Let me guess. You're stalking their social media. You're checking to see what they're doing, who they're with, whether they seem happy, whether they've moved on. You're replaying conversations in your head, analyzing what you could have done differently, imagining confrontations, writing speeches you'll never deliver. You're talking to friends about it, telling the story over and over, seeking validation, asking for confirmation that you were right and they were wrong. You're ruminating on the injustice, the unfairness, the betrayal itself, playing it over and over like a movie you can't stop watching. And every second you do this, every minute you spend focused on them, on what happened on the past, you're giving away your power. You're making them the center of your mental universe. You're letting them live rent-free in the most valuable real estate that exists, your mind. Here's what the Stoics would tell you, what they're telling you right now through me. Stop. Stop giving your attention to what you can't change. Stop feeding energy to what doesn't serve you. Stop focusing on them and start focusing on you, because attention is energy. Where your attention goes, energy flows. And you've been flowing all your energy into the past, into people who don't deserve it, into circumstances you can't change. What if you took all that attention, all that mental energy, all that focus, and redirected it? Redirected it to your goals, your growth, your training, your work, your future. What if, instead of checking their social media, you read a book? What if instead of replaying the betrayal, you planned your next move? What if instead of talking about them, you worked on yourself? What would happen in 6 months? In a year? You would be transformed, completely, unrecognizably, because you would have invested thousands of hours of focused attention into building something instead of destroying yourself with rumination. This is the discipline of attention. This is mental mastery. And it's hard. It's so much harder than people realize, because your mind has been trained to seek drama, to focus on threats, to ruminate on problems. It's a survival mechanism that's completely maladaptive in modern life. Your ancient ancestors needed to remember who wronged them, needed to stay alert to threats, needed to replay dangerous situations to learn from them. But you don't need to remember this betrayal 1,000 times. Once is enough. learn the lesson, extract the wisdom, and then let it go. Move your attention forward. But how do you actually do this? How do you control attention when your mind keeps pulling you back? First, you catch yourself. Every time you find your thoughts drifting to the betrayal, to them, to the past, you notice it. You don't judge it. You don't get frustrated. You simply notice. There it is again. I'm thinking about them again. Second, you redirect. Gently but firmly, you move your attention back to the present moment, back to what you're doing right now, back to what you can control right now. If you're working, focus on the work. If you're training, focus on the movement. If you're reading, focus on the words. Bring your attention back, over and over, as many times as necessary. Third, you replace. You can't just stop thinking about something. You have to give your mind something else to focus on. So you consciously choose what that will be. You choose a goal to focus on, a project to build, a skill to develop. You make a decision about where your attention will go, and you enforce it. Fourth, you create boundaries. You limit your exposure to triggers. You unfollow their social media. You avoid places they frequent. You stop talking about them. Not because you're afraid, but because you're disciplined. You're protecting your attention like a sacred resource, which it is. And here's what happens. When you master this, when you truly learn to guard and direct your attention, you become unstoppable. Because while everyone else is scattered, distracted, pulled in 1,000 directions, you're focused, laser-focused, all your energy moving in one direction, toward growth, toward goals, toward transformation. You achieve in months what takes others years because you're not wasting attention on drama, on the past, on things you can't change. You're investing every ounce of mental energy into building the future you want. The person who betrayed you, they become irrelevant, not because you forgive them, not because you forget, but because you literally don't think about them anymore. Your attention is too valuable. Your focus is too important. Your mental space is too precious to waste on people who walked away. This is freedom. This is power. This is what it means to truly move on, not by forcing yourself to stop caring, but by choosing to care about something else more, by directing your attention so completely toward your own development that there's no room left for them. Comment this: my attention is my power, and I control where it goes. Type it, mean it, and then practice it. Today, right now. Every time your mind wanders to the betrayal, catch it and bring it back, over and over, until controlling your attention becomes as natural as breathing. This is the discipline that changes everything. Number 6, build yourself in silence. Here's a truth that's going to sting. One of the reasons betrayal hurt so much is because you had an audience. You told people about your relationships. You shared your life. You made your connections public. You let others into your business. And when things fell apart, when the betrayal happened, you didn't just lose a person. You lost face. You felt humiliated, embarrassed, exposed. Everyone knew. Everyone saw. Everyone had an opinion. And part of your pain wasn't just the loss itself. It was the public nature of it. The shame of having believed in something that failed. The discomfort of having to explain what happened. The vulnerability of everyone knowing you were hurt. The Stoics have something to teach you about this. Something crucial. Something that goes against every instinct modern culture has trained into you. Epictetus said, "First learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak." The modern version of this? Stop announcing. Stop sharing. Stop making your life a performance for others to judge. Start building in silence. Because here's what happens when you broadcast everything. When you share every goal, every plan, every intention. When you post every workout, every achievement, every moment, you lose the power of it. You trade the dopamine of doing for the dopamine of announcing. You get satisfaction from people's reactions instead of from the actual accomplishment. And worse, you make yourself vulnerable to judgment, to opinion, to the gaze of people who aren't doing anything themselves but feel entitled to comment on what you're doing. Think about what you've learned from this betrayal. Some of the people you thought would support you didn't. Some of the people you trusted to keep your confidence didn't. Some of the people who claimed to care used your vulnerability against you. What did that teach you? That not everyone deserves access to your inner world. That privacy is power. That silence is strength. That the less people know about what you're doing, the less they can interfere with it. So you're going to rebuild differently this time. You're going to transform in silence. You're not going to announce your goals. You're just going to pursue them. You're not going to post about your progress. You're just going to make progress. You're not going to tell people about your plans. You're just going to execute them. And then, when you've actually achieved something, when you've actually transformed, when you've actually become the person you set out to become, then they'll see, not because you told them, but because you showed them, through results, through change, through the undeniable evidence of who you've become. This is how you build real power, in silence, in private, in the sacred space between you and your own standards. When you work out, you don't post about it. You just get stronger. When you learn something, you don't broadcast it. You just get smarter. When you build something, you don't announce it. You just build it. You become like a predator in nature, silent, focused, moving with purpose, not announcing its presence, not seeking attention, just hunting, just executing, just deadly efficient in pursuit of its goal. And here's why this matters so much right now. You're in a vulnerable state. You're transforming. You're rebuilding. You're figuring out who you are after this betrayal. This is sacred work. This is deep work. This is inner work. And the last thing you need is other people's input, other people's opinions, other people's judgments about how you should heal, who you should become, what you should do next. You need space. You need silence. You need privacy. You need to do this work without performing it for an audience. Because when you have an audience, even a supportive one, you start doing things for them instead of for you. You start seeking their approval. You start measuring your progress by their reactions. You give away your power again, just to different people. But now you're learning. Now you understand. Your transformation is yours. Your healing is yours. Your growth is yours. It's not content. It's not a story to share. It's not a performance. It's private. It's sacred. It's between you and yourself. Build in silence. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. Let them have their opinions. While they're talking, you're working. While they're posting, you're training. While they're seeking attention, you're building substance. And 6 months from now, a year from now, when they see you, they won't recognize you. Not because you told them you were changing, but because the change will be undeniable, visible, powerful, real. That's the victory. That's the proof. That's the statement that requires no words. Seneca wrote, "All cruelty springs from weakness. The people who betrayed you were weak, and their weakness was loud. It needed to be seen. It needed to be justified. It needed an audience. But your strength will be quiet. It won't need to be seen to be real. It won't need to be justified to be valid. It won't need an audience to be powerful. It will simply exist, solid, unshakable, built in the silence while others were busy talking. This is the way. This is the discipline. This is how you ensure that your transformation is real, deep, and permanent. Not performed for others, but forged in the quiet crucible of your own commitment to becoming better. Comment this: I build myself in silence, and my results speak. Type it, commit to it, and then delete the post asking for validation. Close the app seeking attention. Turn off the need for others to witness your journey, and just walk it. In silence, in power, in truth. The right people will see eventually, and the wrong people, they don't deserve to watch anyway. Number 7, remember your mortality. We've arrived at the final law, the ultimate truth, the principle that puts everything else in perspective and gives you unshakable clarity about what matters and what doesn't. The Stoics called it memento mori. Remember, you will die. And I know what you're thinking. How is that motivational? How does thinking about death help me deal with betrayal? Listen carefully, because this might be the most important thing I tell you today. Your betrayal, as painful as it was, as significant as it feels, is temporary. The person who hurt you? Temporary. The pain you're feeling? Temporary. The anger, the sadness, the confusion? Temporary. Your reputation, your relationships, your circumstances? All temporary. You know what's permanent? Death. One day, not that far from now, you will die. Everyone you know will die. Everyone who betrayed you will die. Everyone who supported you will die. Everyone who witnessed your pain will die. Everything you're worried about right now, everything you're obsessing over, everything that feels so critically important will be forgotten, completely, utterly, as if it never happened. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, knew this. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." He wasn't being morbid. He was being free. Because when you truly internalize your mortality, when you viscerally understand that your time is limited, everything changes. All the petty concerns fall away. All the ego-driven nonsense disappears. All the time wasted on things that don't matter becomes obvious. You're spending your finite time, your limited days on earth, obsessing over someone who betrayed you. Someone who showed you they don't deserve space in your life. You're giving your precious hours to resentment, to pain, to replaying the past. And the clock is ticking. Tick, tick, tick. Every second you spend suffering over this betrayal is a second you'll never get back. Every hour you waste being bitter is an hour you could have spent building, creating, living. Every day you remain stuck in this pain is a day closer to your last day. And when you're on your deathbed, when you're taking your last breaths, when you're reviewing your life in those final moments, will you be grateful you spent so much time focused on this betrayal? Will you be proud that you let it consume years of your life? Will you think it was time well spent? Or will you realize too late that you wasted your finite existence on something that didn't matter, on someone who didn't deserve it, on pain you could have released? This is not meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up, to give you perspective, to help you see that this betrayal, as real as it is so small compared to the bigger picture of your life. You are going to die. They are going to die. And in the grand scheme of existence, in the vastness of time, this moment, this pain, this betrayal means nothing, unless you choose to give it meaning, unless you choose to let it define you, unless you choose to waste your one life focused on it. So here's what Memento Mori teaches you. It teaches you urgency. Stop wasting time. Stop delaying your transformation. Stop putting off your goals until tomorrow. You might not have tomorrow. Today is the day. Right now is the moment. Use it or lose it. It teaches you priorities. What actually matters. At the end of your life, what will you care about? Not who betrayed you, not who was loyal or disloyal. You'll care about whether you lived fully, whether you loved deeply, whether you pursued your purpose, whether you became who you were capable of becoming, whether you used your time wisely. That's it. That's what matters. Everything else is noise. It teaches you detachment. Nothing is permanent, including you, including your pain, including the people you think you can't live without, including the situations you think will destroy you. It all passes. Everything passes. So stop clinging. Stop holding on. Stop trying to make temporary things permanent. Let go. Flow. Accept. Move forward. It teaches you courage. If you're going to die anyway, what are you afraid of? What's the worst that can happen? Embarrassment? Pain? Failure? So what? You'll be dead soon. None of it will matter. So take the risk. Make the move. Live boldly, because a short life lived fully is infinitely better than a long life lived in fear. It teaches you gratitude. You're alive, right now, in this moment. You survived the betrayal. You're still here. You're still breathing. You still have time to transform, to grow, to become better. That's not guaranteed. People died today who didn't get another chance, but you did. You have today. Be grateful. Use it. Don't waste it on bitterness. This is the final law because it contains all the others. When you remember you're going to die, you naturally focus on what you can control because you don't have time to waste on what you can't. You naturally master your emotions because you realize how precious your mental state is. You naturally turn obstacles into fuel because you understand their opportunities to grow in your limited time. You naturally practice discomfort because you want to be strong for the life you have left. You naturally guard your attention because it's your most finite resource. You naturally build in silence because you don't need validation from people who will be gone soon anyway. Everything becomes clear when you remember you're mortal. The ancient Stoics practiced this daily. Marcus Aurelius would meditate on death every morning. Seneca would reflect on mortality every night. They kept it at the front of their minds, not to be depressed, but to be alive, to be present, to be focused, to make the most of every single day. And you're going to do the same. Every morning when you wake up, before you reach for your phone, before you start your day, you're going to remind yourself, I'm mortal. I have limited time. Today might be my last day. How do I want to spend it? On the past? On pain? On people who don't matter? Or on building, growing, living? And every night before you sleep, you're going to reflect. Did I use today well? Did I move forward? Did I waste my time on things that don't matter? What will I do differently tomorrow? This practice changes everything. Because when you live like you're dying, which you are, you stop tolerating bullshit. You stop accepting mediocrity. You stop wasting time on people, situations, and behaviors that don't serve your highest self. You become ruthlessly focused on what matters. and you transform faster than you ever thought possible, because you don't have time not to. The person who betrayed you, forgiven, not because they deserve it, but because you don't have time to carry that weight. The resentment you're holding, released, not because it's not justified, but because you'd rather use that energy to build something beautiful. The pain you're feeling, acknowledged and transformed, not because you're suppressing it, but because you're choosing to use your limited time to become stronger instead of staying broken. This is the power of memento mori. This is the final truth. This is what makes you unbreakable. Because how can anyone hurt you when you remember that all of this, all of it, is temporary? How can any betrayal destroy you when you know that in 100 years, no one will remember it happened? How can you stay stuck when you understand that every day you're not growing is a day wasted that you'll never get back? You can't. You won't. You refuse to, because you remember you're going to die. And you're going to make damn sure that when that moment comes, you look back on this betrayal not as the thing that broke you, but as the thing that made you, the catalyst, the transformation point, the moment when you stopped being weak and became unbreakable. Comment this final truth. I am mortal, so I will not waste my life on what doesn't matter. Type it, own it, live it, because this is not just philosophy, this is your life, and it's running out. Every second you spend reading these words is a second gone forever. So what are you going to do with the seconds you have left? Will you waste them on betrayal, or will you use them to rise, my friend, warrior, survivor? We've traveled far together in these moments, from the depths of betrayal to the heights of Stoic wisdom, from broken to building, from victim to victor. Let's bring it all together now. Let's see clearly what this transformation really is. You came here hurt, confused, betrayed, looking for answers, looking for relief, looking for a way to make sense of what happened. And what I've given you isn't comfort. It isn't revenge. It isn't a way to get them back or make them regret their choices. What I've given you is something far more valuable. I've given you the keys to becoming unbreakable. 7 laws, 7 principles, 7 truths that the greatest minds in history used to transcend suffering and achieve mastery. The dichotomy of control, mastering your emotions, turning obstacles into fuel, practicing voluntary discomfort, guarding your attention, building in silence, remembering your mortality. These aren't just concepts. These aren't just ideas to think about. These are practices to live, daily disciplines that will transform you from the ground up if you commit to them, if you actually do them, if you stop reading about change and start being the change. Because here's the ultimate truth, the one that ties everything together. That betrayal you experienced, it was never about them. It was always about you. It was life asking you a question. Who are you really? Are you just a collection of relationships, dependent on others for your value? Or are you complete in yourself? Are you just a victim of circumstances, broken by whatever happens to you? Or are you a force, strengthened by everything that tries to break you? Are you soft, weak, unprepared for hardship? Or are you a stoic warrior, forged in difficulty, unshakable in chaos? The betrayal was the question. Your response is the answer. And everything you've learned today, everything you're going to practice from this moment forward, is you answering that question with your life, with your actions, with your transformation. You are choosing to rise. Not for them, not to prove anything to them, not to make them regret what they did, but for you, for your own soul, for your own standards, for your own vision of who you're capable of becoming. You are choosing to take the pain they inflicted and transmute it into power, to take the betrayal they committed and use it as fuel, to take the weakness they exposed and transform it into unbreakable strength. And that is the ultimate victory. Not revenge, not getting even, but becoming someone they could never touch, someone they could never hurt, someone they could never reach, because you've transcended, you've evolved, you've moved beyond the level where their actions have power over you. You remember your mortality, you know your time is limited, and you refuse to waste another second of it giving power to people who walked away. You refuse to spend another day in pain over temporary people in a temporary situation in your temporary life. You are going to use your time to build, to grow, to become, to rise. Not someday, not when you feel ready, not when the pain stops. Now, today, this moment, because this moment is all you have. This moment is where transformation happens. This moment is where you choose, victim or victor, broken or building, stuck or rising. You choose now. And if you're still here, if you've listened this far, if these words have stirred something in you, then you've already chosen. You've chosen to rise. You've chosen to transform. You've chosen to become unbreakable. Now you just have to do it. Day after day, choice after choice, discipline after discipline, until it's not something you're doing. It's who you are, the stoic, the warrior, the one who rises alone, because you understand now that alone isn't lonely. Alone is powerful. Alone is where you find yourself. Alone is where you build the fortress of your character that no one can penetrate. The ancient Stoics faced empires crumbling, loved ones dying, betrayals at the highest levels of power, slavery, exile, war, plague, loss, everything life could throw at them. And they didn't just survive, they thrived. They wrote wisdom that echoes through centuries. They lived with virtue that inspires millions. They transformed suffering into strength and obstacles into opportunities. And they did it the same way you're going to do it. One choice at a time. One day at a time. One discipline at a time. Controlling what they could control, mastering their emotions, turning obstacles into fuel, practicing discomfort, guarding their attention, building in silence, remembering their mortality, living these principles until they became who they were. And that's your path now. You walk it alone, but you walk it with strength, with clarity, with purpose. You walk it knowing that every step forward is a step away from who you were and a step toward who you're becoming. And who you're becoming. That version of you is unstoppable. That version of you is unbreakable. That version of you looks back on this betrayal and smiles. Not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Because without it, you would have never woken up. You would have never transformed. You would have never discovered the power that was always inside you, waiting for the right catalyst to emerge. They betrayed you, and in doing so, they set you free. Free from dependence, free from illusion, free from weakness. They betrayed you, and in doing so, they gave you the greatest gift. The gift of necessity. The necessity to rise. The necessity to become strong. The necessity to transform. So rise. Rise with the 7 laws in your heart. Rise with stoic wisdom in your mind. Rise with discipline in your actions. Rise with purpose in your soul. Rise alone. Rise strong. Rise unbreakable. Because that's who you are now. That's who you're choosing to be. That's the answer to the question life asked. I want you to do something for me right now. Comment below your truth, your commitment, your declaration. Tell me which of these 7 laws resonated most. Tell me which one you're going to practice today. Tell me what your transformation is going to look like. Not for me, for you. Because when you write it, when you declare it, when you put it out into the world, you make it real. You make it a commitment. You make it a promise to yourself that you're going to keep. And then, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Someone who's going through their own betrayal. Someone who's stuck. Someone who needs to remember that they have the power to rise. Because this isn't just information. This is transformation. This is the path. This is the way forward. And finally, subscribe. Not just to this channel, but to this philosophy, to this way of life, to Stoicism, to discipline, to the warrior's path. Because this journey doesn't end with one video. It continues every day with new challenges, new obstacles, new opportunities to practice these principles and prove who you really are. Stay with me on this path. Keep walking, keep growing, keep rising, because we're not done. This is just the beginning. Your transformation is just starting. And I'll be here bringing you more wisdom, more truth, more tools to build the unbreakable version of yourself. You betrayed? Good. Now you rise alone. That's not just a title. That's your life now. That's your truth. That's your power. Own it. Live it. Become it. The Stoics are watching from history, proud, knowing that their wisdom still transforms lives 2,000 years later. Your ancestors are watching, hoping you'll be strong, hoping you'll rise, hoping you'll honor the strength in your bloodline. And you're watching yourself, right now, in this moment, deciding who you're going to be. I believe in you. The Stoics believed in human potential. And you have that potential. You have that fire. You have that strength. Now show yourself. Show the world. Show everyone who doubted you, not through words, through action, through transformation, through rising. Go now. Walk the path. Practice the principles. Build yourself in silence and become unbreakable. This is your time. This is your moment. This is your rise. See you on the path, warrior.